On this SEGA Talk, we hop in a Jeep and drive down a dirt road to take a look at one of the biggest licensed games for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, 65 million years in the making. Welcome to SEGA Talk. SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello and welcome to episode 126 of SEGA Talk. I'm Barry. With me is George.
Grr. Sorry. No, it was just me. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
I don't want to start
Okay.
over.
Yeah, don't scare me like that. But if you can't tell from the dinosaurs in the logo, we are talking about Jurassic Park on this episode. And, you might be saying, boy, there's a lot to talk about with Jurassic Park. It's a movie, there's like 30 video games. Thankfully, we're going to simplify it. We're going to be talking about the 1993 Sega Genesis Mega Drive Jurassic Park. But before we get into that, George, why don't you plug our Patreon, but do it like Mr. DNA. Can you do that?
I can't, but I could do it like George knows how to plug badly. That's how I'll do it. If you guys go to patreon.com/SegaBits, you can check out our Patreon with numerous tiers. For $1, you get the audio version early. For $5, you get the video version, and for $20, you could tell us what game or topic in Sega to cover. I think the topic stuff is a little more, nuanced. So, messages your ideas, and we'll give you an idea of what we could cover. Like, obviously, we can't do 60 years of Sega. Maybe we could do decades of Sega or something like that. But it depends on the topic. But yeah. So check us out on patreon.com/SegaBits. We love our supporters, and we are grateful for you, every single one of you.
Yeah, and just to say, August was a good month. We actually went up again.
Nice.
We keep all the data's out there. We're not one of those Patreons where we hide how much we're making. You can see it, and it was low for a bit, but it went up, and we like when it goes up. So we have to call out Taysbell, who is a new supporter, and also give a shout out to Michael S., who jumped back up to the Patreon picker tier. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing from Michael S. in terms of his picks. But this episode was actually a pick from Nicholas Schaefer. And before I read his memories, I'm going to kick off the show. I'll read his memories, and then I will have us share our own. But yeah, releasing worldwide in August 1993 and celebrating its 30th anniversary as we record this, Jurassic Park was, of course, based on the 1993 film Jurassic Park. The game was developed jointly by Blue Sky Software and Sega of America and published by Sega. The game was an action platformer that took the film's plot and simplified it for a 16-bit adventure. And before we get into the game, we do have to talk about Jurassic Park. We could do a whole podcast just about the film itself, but I don't want to do that. So instead, we're going to give a brief synopsis, and then we're going to share memories. So Jurassic Park, it's a classic adventure movie. It was directed by Steven Spielberg and based on the novel by Michael Crichton. The story is about Jurassic Park, a nature reserve on a remote South American island owned by billionaire businessman John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough. Hammond and his team of dedicated scientists have populated the park with genetically engineered dinosaurs. The technological breakthrough has been made possible by extracting and manipulating the DNA from dinosaur blood found in the stomachs of ancient fossilized mosquitoes, which when you read that, it sounds ridiculous.
I totally forgot about the mosquito thing. So, yeah I work for a mosquito company, so I always get the... Jurassic Park, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's where it comes from. All right.
Right. And it should be noted, too, that Michael Crichton actually also wrote, and I think he directed, I might be wrong, the original Westworld. That was him. And the TV series Westworld's, of course, based on the original movie. I believe there's even a callback to the cowboy in the original Westworld in the new TV series that's
There is.
since been canceled. Yeah,
sadly.
I know you
Well,
like that show.
not
I
sadly.
stopped after halfway through season 3, I want to say.
The first season is so good. After
Yeah.
that, it kind of goes downhill, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. I was like hooked. And then by season 3, I was just like, I don't really want to keep watching. Back to JP. So as the reserve nears completion, Hammond invites selected guests to view the site in the hope of attracting recognized experts to take on management roles at the park. So these visitors include paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill, his partner, paleontologist Dr. Ellie Sattler, played by Laura Dern, chaos mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum, Hammond's grandchildren Lex and Tim, played by Ariana Richards and Joseph Mazzello, and also came to the park. They also came to the park and its amazing creatures. Initially, the visitors are all impressed and amazed at the dinosaurs and the habitats, but their wonder turns to fear when the park's computer system is disabled and several dinosaurs escape the high-voltage confines. Damn. So I'd love to say something, but you know what? Nicholas Schaefer comes first. So he says, man, I love the Jurassic Park franchise. When I was 8, I saw the first movie in theaters, and it left a big impact on me. Fast forward to 2000, I'm at Toys R Us, and all of the Genesis and SNES games are marked 75% off. I went to town getting a bunch of games for both systems. Really the first time I wasn't buying them secondhand, and this was one of the games. It was brutally difficult, yet extremely fun. The same could be said for Deep Space Nine on the Genesis. I hope he doesn't pick that one.
Not a Star Trek fan?
I am, but that's weird. Deep Space Nine on the Sega Genesis. Like, what is it, like Quark? Like, I want gold.
I've never played that one, so I wouldn't know.
I haven't either, so maybe he'll pick it now. Even though I didn't make it far, I replayed this game a lot just to see the dinosaurs. I'm super happy to see these classic Jurassic games getting a compilation port game. Honestly, between Disney games and Turtles, getting this type of compilation of ports of SNES, Genesis, NES, and Game Boy, I feel like my 90s dream of owning all the systems has come true. I guess gaming found a way. And Nicholas Schaefer, I have to kind of throw a high voltage electrocution scene at you, because I saw that it's a Jurassic Park Classic Games compilation, limited run games. Guess what's not in that compilation, George?
The Genesis one? Because I saw it too, and I was like,
any of the Sega games.
Right.
They're
and
not in it.
Did they say why on Twitter or anything, why they're not there?
They didn't say why. They kind of hide the fact. Like, they don't make it very clear. And so it's kind of shame on them. Like, it's not called... I mean, I know they can't say Nintendo on the packaging. It's a weird thing, you know what I mean? Where it's like...
Right.
That Disney compilation that came out, they don't specifically say, like, Sega Genesis. They say, like, SG or GG, like, for Game Gear.
So, like, regardless of them not having the Sega ones, I know you're a big Jurassic Park fan. Are you going to pick up one of this collection that they're releasing?
I might pick it up digitally, but not physically. It just doesn't seem that exciting to me. I don't really like the NES and SNES versions. They're
charging $175 for the prehistoric edition, so it's like that's ridiculous for not having the complete Jurassic Park collection, you know?
Right. So I'm going to hold off on any physical one until the Sega stuff gets included. But as far as like memories of Jurassic Park, I mean, I don't hide the fact that I was a kid of the early 80s, so this movie hit like at the exact perfect time for me. I never saw it in the theaters. It just seemed too scary, but I did watch it when it hit home video. I definitely have the video. And I love the movie. It's like one of Spielberg's best of that era. I think it's a lot of kids' introductions to Steven Spielberg, maybe outside of Indiana Jones. And it's just, I mean, just talking about him as a filmmaker, it's insane that, like, this guy did four Indiana Jones movies, Jurassic Park, Jaws, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg for his career. Like he's when all is said and done, I think he's going to be probably one of the most celebrated and prolific filmmakers of all time. When you look at just how much he's done, and it continues to do. I've heard it said like one of his lesser movies is like sometimes the best movie some other filmmaker might make in their entire career. Like Ready Player One, I know that's not a favorite for a lot of people, but like that's like for Spielberg, that's like an okay movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for anyone else, it would be like, oh, he did Ready Player One, and then he never did anything else good. You know?
He literally just released a movie about his mom cheating on his dad. That was a really good movie.
Did you see it? I loved it.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well done.
And that's the thing with Spielberg. Like, he can do these big, crazy, action-packed games or movies like Jurassic Park, but then he can do these like small character pieces. Like, I think one of his greatest movies is Catch Me If You Can. Like,
yeah, it's a good movie too.
God, it's so sad when he learns his dad died just like falling downstairs at a subway station. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a sad movie.
It is a sad movie.
But going back to Jurassic Park, I'll throw it over to you in a second, but I was going to say a few memories I have. Growing up, I had a best friend who was Jurassic Park obsessed. He had the compound play set and all the dinosaurs. I never owned any Jurassic Park toys, but man, those things were awesome. I loved how the dinosaurs had battle damage, so you could peel off chunks of their skin. And then the other memory I have, probably in like 94 or 95, there was actually a traveling exhibition for Jurassic Park that was hitting science museums, and this thing was insane. They had the actual dinosaur bones and banner from the visitor center. They had animation cells from Mr. DNA. They had all these employee badges and costumes. They had the incubation chamber and the little eggs, like full-bodied velociraptors. It was super cool, and it was before The Lost World came out. But I just have a vivid memory of seeing all of the film props like in person just a year or two after the film hit. But that's me. So you spill your guts about Jurassic Park.
So for me, it was one of those movies that I watched at my grandma's house. Like this one and Terminator 2 had like a big impact on me on like the first introduction of CGI, which is, I thought it was crazy. And it doesn't really have too much CGI in the movie, but it's used in, like this one and Terminator use it so well that like I think they aged perfectly. Like, of course, kids are going to be like, oh, today you're going to be like, oh, this is nothing special. But I think it looks not cheesy, because there's some movies that came out back in the 90s, or like Spawn, for example. The CGI is so horrible. They really pulled it off with these two movies, the use of practical and CGI effects. So I would say good movie, really, really good movie. I think the franchise kind of suffered from like we had to do it bigger and better every single time, which I don't think that was like what made this movie amazing. I think it was just the fact that they pulled it off so organically and made it believable. That's, I think, what really sold the movie to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, big fan of this movie. I think it's Spielberg's best. I think he perfected, like I said, just like Terminator 2, both of these movies are top tier in special effects.
And T2, that was James Cameron, another very prolific filmmaker who I think I earned a lot more respect for recently. I went on a trip to Canada, and we went to their science museum in Vancouver, and there was a James Cameron exhibit. I had no idea this guy designed and built submersibles, and he, for a time, was the world record holder for the deepest dive, one-man dive. And it's like, this dude makes so-so movies sometimes. Like, I'm not a big Avatar fan.
Neither.
But man, the stuff he's done for deep sea expeditions is amazing.
I will say you said the Avatar, not a big fan. Neither am I, but like, I got to give him credit because like he made a full CGI movie that's like, it looks nice. Like it really does,
right.
Especially now that you watch movies like The Flash or like Black Panther, those Marvel movies where they just have these really bad CGI scenes. You're like, what? Like he's takes care at least of the CGI he uses.
For sure. And speaking about CGI, I was going to say, when they were developing Jurassic Park, they were going to do stop motion, but then they decided to do CGI, and what they actually did was they built metal armatures of the dinosaurs that actually corresponded to the computers. So instead of laying off their stop motion department, they trained them to do CG by having like a hybrid stop motion model rig that translated to what appeared on the computer for keyframes. So that's kind of unique. I don't think any other film has done that. And as we'll learn later in the development, there was a lot of unique things that the team at Blue Sky did here. Talking about the video game, though, it takes this epic film plot and it actually simplifies it into a much simpler story. So I'm just going to read here a portion of the manual. So it says here, it talks about what Jurassic Park is, etc., etc., but then it gets to the meat and potatoes of the story. It says, dinosaurs rampage across the island, battling other beasts and eluding the traps and weapons of their human enemies. And one man, paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant, stranded in the storm, pushes on to safety while dodging the slashing jaws of the T-Rex and the paralyzing spit of the Dilophosaurus. Now it's your turn. Take the role of the raptor or Dr. Grant. Plunge into the heart-thudding race for survival in a techno-primitive world, if you dare. So, George, just reading that, like, what's missing from that plot?
Well, the whole thing of making them, and it's just
everybody.
Yeah, like I'm saying, like it's just one character's. Where's Jeff Goldblum? Isn't he?
No one, nowhere. The game is literally Dr. Alan Grant alone on the island. No one else is there except for Jurassic Park security guards, who I think only appear in the Velociraptor story.
Huh.
So it's kind of weird that they don't like maybe have the other characters there off to the side,
or even mention them.
Right. And Sega, they actually did adapt Jurassic Park 3 times. There was the Master System Game Gear version, which is kind of a stripped down version of this. There's the Sega CD version, and then there's an arcade version. And there was even a sequel to the Genesis version called the Rampage Edition, which I think will actually be its own Sega Talk episode. Maybe we'll bundle it with like the Master System version. But as far as faithfulness to the movie, none of these games came close. So the arcade version is set a few months after the first film. The Sega CD version also takes place after the first film with new characters. And the Master System version, like I said, it's like a scaled down Genesis one. Other platforms also have Jurassic Park games, but most of them just have Grant as the main character on a solo adventure. Telltale Games had a game in 2011 that takes place during the events of the movie, but set in different areas of the park with different characters. So, what are your thoughts on the Genesis game simplifying the story to the point of it just being Grant versus a raptor?
Yeah, that is weird. When I was a kid, I just assumed that all these other characters were somewhere else in the map. Like, when I put it in, I just, I never really thought too deeply about where's all these other characters? Where's the old scientist guy? And where's the kids? I just kind of assumed that they were somewhere else and you just played as this one character. So I guess you're right. They weren't in the game at all. For some reason, I thought they were in like cutscenes or mentioned in the background, but I guess they weren't. Now that you've mentioned it,
it's funny too because it's like Jurassic Park Westworld. If you saw the original movie, it's just one guy and the cowboy, and that's it. So could you maybe envision a version of the game that's more faithful to the film, like? What would you pitch to include, like, Ellie and the kids?
Well, I personally, I don't think they just kept one character, in my opinion, just because they didn't want to animate different, character animations for each one.
For sure.
Have the kids play, like, a no attack kind of version of the game where they have to hide and stuff and not make more stealth-based. And then when you play as Grant, he's more of weapons based, and then have each one have their own little type of gameplay. But add them. I guess the kids could have guns too if you really want. I mean, they were just dart guns anyway. It wasn't like they were
right.
blasting holes through the raptors or anything. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, I always thought if you could include the other characters, it might be like little side missions. Like you'd have a Grant level, and then there would be a short like kid evading the raptor level where you're like ducking and hiding, kind of Metal Gear Solid. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you could have Ellie as like another character you can pick from and have her have the same kind of moveset as Grant. But I think it really was just like a time-saving, money-saving reason. And, you know, there is an alternate reality where there's like Dennis Nedry, you know, in his Barbasol can, and there's like a mini submission there, and it would be fun. But the movie has so many characters that I can see why. Something worth pointing out, when Spielberg made the movie, there's so many characters in it, but what he did was he color-coded them, almost like the movie Clue, you know what I mean? So if you think to the characters, it's very easy to see who's who. Grant's blue, Ellie's pink, Hammond's white. You know, they all have very clear costumes that are very easy to distinguish from each other. So I could see that translating to a game. Yeah.
I do have a question for you. When you did you play this game when you were younger, and did you notice that the kids and everyone else was missing?
I didn't think about it at the time, but yeah, I kind of thought they were maybe off screen. But now returning to it, and I have my copy here. It is kind of odd how it's just him.
Right.
But it's not anywhere near as bad as a translation as some other games, and I think we'll get to some here. But talking about the gameplay itself, so the game's side-scrolling action platformer, you play as Grant or a Velociraptors. Each level's objective is to reach the end of the stage, and players can move objects, duck, jump, and grab ledges. Grant's gameplay sees the objective being navigating 7 areas of the park and escaping via helicopter at the visitor center. As he makes way through the park, he battles dinosaurs, uses various weapons, including a tranquilizer gun and gas grenades. And one important element, and I think this was established before they even started, was that the dinosaurs not be killed. Grant would stun and tranquilize them because they were animals and not monsters. This isn't Dino Crisis, you know?
Right.
The raptor, meanwhile, has the goal of eliminating security guards, fighting other dinosaurs, and confronting Grant at the visitor center, which is in line with the movie. It's just, I don't think they had a single Velociraptor called out, which is kind of interesting because you brought up the sequels. Jurassic World has like a star character, Blue, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's interesting that even as far back as 93, they were throwing a like main character Velociraptor at us. Unlike Grant, the Raptor only has 5 levels, but also has better abilities. He can jump higher, run faster, and instead of weapons, which honestly would have been hilarious to see him like throwing grenades with his little hands, like.
I wish. That would be awesome.
That would have been so cool. He bites and kicks and pounces. Do you remember his bites?
Yeah.
They're so funny. He's like... Each character starts with 3 lives and health bars. Death will see restarting at the beginning of the stage, and especially frustrating is that falls will kill Grant, but not the raptor. So if you hate games where you die from falling from certain heights, yeah, this is one of those. Grant uses med packs to refill his health. The raptor must eat meat, including tiny little compies, which became famous in The Lost World, the sequel. But I believe in the first Jurassic Park book, Hammond dies by being eaten by compies, so they were established early on. But it is interesting that they play a part here, but they're not actually in the movie. And another aside, the Lost World game for Sega Saturn sees you playing as a compy at the very beginning. So, what do you think of compies? Those things are scary, right?
Yes, they are. I think. Well, also, yeah. But what do you think? One thing that all I know about dinosaurs was from Jurassic Park, and from what I've heard, dinosaurs don't even look like this at all. Do you believe that? Because I refuse to believe that. Like, it's like Pluto's still a planet to me.
Right. No, I get you. This really established what dinosaurs look like. But yeah, in reality, they were actually probably a lot more colorful and had like feathers coming off of them, which is weird.
Right.
But you can explain it away that these are like hybrids, so they actually lack certain things that real dinosaurs would, because they think they use like frog DNA to fill in some of the sequences.
Oh.
And speaking of sequences, the game has a password system.
Oh.
So thank God for that. And the difficulty levels are actually based on how much damage the enemies dole out. So Jurassic Park, it's a basic platformer, but it has some fun twists on the genre with the raptor. So looking at the gameplay, what are your favorite and least favorite elements?
I like the fact that you play. This is the one you play as a raptor, right? Right? Because you said it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I like that aspect of it. I think the game's a little too hard, and could turn off a lot of people on the difficulty. It's one of those like. I would say it's way better than something like Home Alone, but like, there's some of these movie tie-in that they just raise the difficulty level. Maybe it's not that hard, but I just remember being a kid being like, "Oh, okay, F this game." But I'm trying to remember if I beat it. I know I want to say that I maybe did, but I don't know. What is your least favorite thing about this game?
I think the falling and dying, because
right.
I get you want to make it realistic, but I don't know. Like, it's a game, it's a video game, so maybe don't be so strict with how far a character needs to fall to survive. Like, I don't know. I get they're trying to be realistic. You know what? Maybe what it is, have him lose half his health, but not die.
Or how about just don't put heights that high where you could fall?
Right, or put springs.
Yeah, something.
Like Sonic springs.
Or little leaves where you just fall and you'd be like, you kind of like fall and then you get out. So there's like a...
Yeah, exactly. I think my favorite element is, of course, the raptor. And I like it because it's kind of a Sonic and Knuckles vibe where you have two characters that go through kind of similar stages, but you see a different story and then they come together at the end. I think they could have played that up a lot more. I think there should have been a mode where you could play as both of them and it alternates, kind of like Sonic Adventure 2, where you get like Team Hero, Team Dark, you get like Team Raptor, Team Grant. Let's take a look at the game's weapons and items. And to simplify things, I actually linked us to the handy dandy SEGA Retro. So Grant, he has quite a few items to use. There's blue darts, which are kind of the weaker dart. There's the red super darts, which require fewer shots. There's the stun gun, which is like an electric shocker. And what's kind of fun is it has different levels that you can hold how long it to charge, which is fun. There's gas grenades, flash grenades, and concussion grenades, so they have different levels there. And then rockets, which
rocket
are kind
will
of funny.
Kill you, right? Like, let's be honest. You're like shooting them with an RPG missile. I mean, I would assume that, but this is like a rocket, like an actual like space rocket, or
yeah, it looks like a little like rocket ship that he's shooting at them. And then, of course, with the items, it's kind of the same things. They have the first aid kit, and then the darts, the grenades, the rockets. There's also a gas can, which refuels the raft, and then a battery, which gives more energy, the stun gun. And then I love this. For Raptor, look at the items.
It's just like a rotten piece of meat.
It's not even good meat. It's not like Streets of Rage meat, where you're finding a whole turkey inside a phone booth. Which, honestly, we should do that. Like, just... I'd challenge anyone. Go out, buy a rotisserie chicken, put it on like a little paper plate, and then just set it in a phone booth or set it inside of a newspaper receptacle and just see what people react. Maybe they'll take a bite. Maybe you'll help someone,
Also, the raptor, the meat should have been just like a little human.
It should have been.
Yeah, I mean
maybe a snack, like a bag of human chips. I don't
right.
know. Let's leave this open and actually scroll down to the levels. We can take a quick look here. There is, under Grant, there is jungle. There's the power station. There's the river, which gets me every time. Like, look at that screenshot. He's like, popping out of a tunnel. Like, when did that happen? This is a Grant exclusive level, the river one. He must collect gas cans to keep the raft moving, which of course is so realistic. Like, if you've driven a raft before, you need to collect a gas can floating in the water.
That's how it is here in Florida. In the water, there's just a bunch of gas cans everywhere.
And it's like every 10 seconds you need to refill it. Which is why it's like, why can't he fall far, like, long distances and survive? Like, they want to be realistic, and yet they're like, oh, you collect gas cans. There's the pumping station, which I always thought was kind of a creepy stage. It looks like unlike anything you see in the movie. In fact, a lot of these look like unlike anything you'd see in the movie. Right. There was no river stage. There was no pumping station with this dinosaur just popping out of the water. Canyon is pretty sick. It's a volcano, like an active volcano. And then you go inside the volcano.
Just like in the movie.
It's like none of this is... Though this is in... what was it? The sixth one or the fifth one where they...
The one with Chris Pratt?
Yeah, where Jurassic Park, like, blows up.
Is that the, like... Oh, I do remember. And then, like, in the end, the girl's like, I have to let him go for no reason, right? Is that the one?
Which one is that? It's not Fallen Kingdom. I didn't see
Dominion,
the last two.
Or whatever?
Oh, maybe it is Dominion, yeah. You go inside the volcano. This one's only Dr. Grant. And then finally, there's the visitor center. And what's kind of fun is to go inside, you kick open the doors. So you stand in front of the doors and you press up, and then he goes... you can use elevators, and you can climb staircases. Very exciting stuff. And then you defeat raptors at the end, and then that's it. And you cause the dinosaur bones to fall on them, just like in the movie. But the raptor, meanwhile, he has a kind of a truncated version. So he does jungle, he does power station, the pumping station, the canyon, and then finally the visitor center. But what's funny is that here... you actually see a different version where you attack the dinosaur bones and then cause Grant to fall with them. And then what happens? Like, does the Velociraptor get into the helicopter? I don't know.
He drives it.
He does. Well, that's funny because the Jurassic Park comic books actually had an iconic cover where it was a Velociraptor sitting in the pilot's seat of, like, a helicopter. Because, like, implying he ate the pilot and then took a seat.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I think just staying on this page here, let's call it out because I didn't actually save a photo. But if you can see the little map there, you see that?
Right.
If you look at the map, and it's kind of hard to see, in the top portion, if you look upside down, there's a little genie lamp actually in the map, hidden there. And we'll remember that for the development part, which we're actually getting into right now. Jurassic Park, of course, was a phenomenon before it even released. It had Spielberg attached, who was really returning to his animal horror roots at Universal Studios. Like, I remember at the time they were like, from the man who made Jaws at Universal Studios, he's going to do the same thing with dinosaurs. And, you know, as such... there were several bids for the video game rights. Both Acclaim and Activision actually vied to get it. And thankfully, Sega saved us from a shitty Acclaim Jurassic Park game by outbidding the two on the rights. And George, like, what sort of shit could you see from Acclaim and Activision? And just to point out what they made at the time, Acclaim specifically, they made the Addams Family and Terminator 2 for the Genesis.
Ew.
Yeah.
Probably a shooting, killing dinosaur game, but like really bad, where like you'll randomly step one time and then things fall from the ceiling for no reason and kill you, and
right,
steam comes out of the floor and it takes half your health bar. every time it touches you, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Acclaim and Activision at the time, they were well known for their licensed games, but they were also well known for just kind of like cranking them out, not putting too much thought and love into them. As you'll hear pretty soon, like what Blue Sky did for this game, I can't imagine Acclaim or Activision ever doing. And in fact, I feel like if you want an idea of what they would have made, probably look to the SNES games, which are, I forgot who made those, but they just kind of have that like Acclaim vibe to them, where it's just kind of like, oh, make it a top-down puzzle game, you shoot them. I don't know. Don't put much thought into the graphics. Just make dinosaurs and like little guys. Like
you're talking about the SNES game in the negative. Like I've never played it, but I've noticed that it's the one that most people online talk about when they're talking about 16-bit era. They're always like Super Nintendo game, and I think there's like other games that make reference to the Super Nintendo game. That's what I think is weird. And then we're talking about that limited run games collection is Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it's kind of like Zelda in terms of the way that it like looks. And then just for me, like looking at the graphics, it just looks cartoony. It doesn't look like someone watched Jurassic Park and really studied dinosaurs. They just were like, I'll just make sprites of dinosaurs. You know, it's fine, but it looks like a cartoony Jurassic Park. It just, I don't know. I'm sure that it's a decent game, but just in terms of like the effort they went into. And let's have the video playing of the gameplay. This comes courtesy of, what's their name?
Media Pool, and of course that iconic dinosaur saying SEGA. I gotta play that first.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's what people really remember from this one is the dinosaur says Sega. But at the time, developer Blue Sky Software, they made games exclusively for Sega and had the power to select what projects they worked on. So with Sega acquiring the rights, Blue Sky chose to develop the game. The 1993 release would coincide with Sonic 3, making the holiday lineup especially strong for the Genesis. The game's animators, they read books by experts like Robert Baker, who later assisted with the Sega CD version, and he even dissected a chicken for the Sega CD dev team and landed a role as a character within the Sega CD game. And the development team, they also visited museums and zoos to observe the feeding habits and movements of birds and reptiles. And before I go on, a lot of this information actually comes from the Ken Horowitz book, Playing at the Next Level, A History of American Sega Genesis. It's kind of hard to show here.
Right, with the screen, the green screen. There you go.
You can see it there. There we go.
That's a
fantastic
good
book.
That's a good book.
It's really, really good. I recommend any of Ken's books. In fact, Ken recently agreed to come back on Swing and Report Show. We're going to talk about Bally Midway Pinball, his latest book, and the connection they have to Sega. But Ken, he goes through the history of this game with a lot of really interesting stuff that actually debunks some of the stuff that's on Wikipedia. So that's kind of interesting. So if you want the real story, you should check out Ken's books. But talking about the development here, so getting a hands-on experience of outside influences can often lead to better games. Can you think of some other video games where the dev team took field trips and studied with experts?
For a week and then make Shimu after it. I would say it's more rare. I think that's more of a movie thing. I think especially for like, I can't think of anybody that took trips for a movie tie-in game. You know what I mean? That's different because you're making it based on a movie, so you just watch the movie. So I think at this time, especially 16-bit era where it was more limited, it was very rare. Can you think of any?
One that came to mind was the Sonic Adventures Sonic team going to South America to visit Mayan ruins just so they could make like a ruin for Knuckles. Like,
Right.
that's them just wasting Sega's money for a free trip. Let's be honest. Like that
Part of
Sonic
development
Adventure's
costs.
trip to South America has no bearing on the plot, unlike Yu Suzuka going to China because he's actually like making a game in China.
Right.
But yeah, I love those stories where they're like, Yuji Naka and the team went to South America. Now knowing what we know now, we're like, maybe Yuji Naka was taking advantage of the company and the money they were throwing on him because he's...
Let's be honest though, if your company was like, Barry, you got to design this South American ad,
Yeah,
they're like,
100%.
do you want to
I'd
go
be
to
there.
South America and live
Yep.
there for a
Yep.
week? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yep.
Thank you,
Bye.
company. Yeah. So
No, and I mean, I'm not trying to like, shame them, but I just think it's kind of funny that in the end, they created a temple in like an adventure field because they visited.
I will have to go to
South
South
America.
America and visit a place like that to see if they accurately display what it is like in real life.
Oh,
I think
worth
I think they did a good job with San Francisco and Sonic Adventure 2, though.
they did. I mean, I think they lived there, so that kind of helps.
Right. But they did a good job for that.
They did. Maybe they asked to move there just so they could study it. But at one point, Blue Sky Software, going back to that map I was showing, or we were showing earlier, they were producing 2 games concurrently. So they were making Jurassic Park and Aladdin. And a larger team was focused on Jurassic Park, a smaller team on Aladdin. However, the Jurassic Park team kept pulling some of the Aladdin team members into the development process. Disney actually noticed this lack of effort and quality in Aladdin, and after just one stage was completed, the game's producer stopped production on the game, and Blue Sky's Aladdin was canceled and replaced with the iconic version by Virgin Games. I don't think it was that much of a dramatic situation. It was more like, hey guys, we're doing Jurassic Park, we're doing Aladdin, we don't have time for both. Virgin's here, they'll do the work, we'll jointly produce it, it's all cool, we'll get it done. And they did get it done. It released in the fall. However, the Blue Sky team did work in a sneaky nod to their canceled project by placing an upside-down genie lamp in the Jurassic Park overworld map. So that's fun.
Right.
Let's get into a little controversy here. So producer Jesse Taylor, art director Dana Christensen, and beloved artist Doug TenNapel, creator of Earthworm Jim, who never caused any outrage or anything.
He's just a good boy.
He's just a cool guy that hates people.
Right.
They served as leads for the game and were the ones to decide on the side-scrolling platformer. One important element to the game was the AI, and because players would interact with wild animals, the team wanted to make a game that was both exciting and unpredictable. So Jurassic Park popularized the theory of birds evolving from dinosaurs, and the team observed what the team did was they observed how birds react in various situations and developed something called artificial dinosaur intelligence, which gave in-game dinosaurs multiple reactions to different situations, so no 2 playthroughs were ever the same. Raptors were given the most attention, with up to 12 possible reactions to player actions. Well, simple compared to today's enemy AI, ADI was impressive for its time. And what are your thoughts on this ADI? And
I don't know if I just never really noticed that it was any different. I think that sometimes that, like, as a kid you just go, oh, hit it, it's right there, and you use that. That's kind of where you're. Did you notice that they acted differently compared to, let's say, Aladdin's bad guys?
I think I did, because in one that really comes to mind is Sonic 1. I've played that game so many times, and every time you boot it up on that first stage, the enemies do the same thing every time. They'll do the same pattern, the same shooting. Now, eventually, they'll kind of maybe change their direction or their attacks because of what Sonic's doing.
But it's on a pattern.
But in Jurassic Park, they had things like some raptors might not attack you because maybe they're full, they're not hungry, you don't smell good, they're not going to attack you. So there are situations where you might approach a raptor and it won't attack you right away until you attack it. There's other situations where, like if you throw a smoke grenade at a Triceratops or something, it'll run and charge at you, whereas trying to shoot it with a dart, maybe it will like try to run away or something. So your actions alter what they do, which I think is pretty smart. I wish more games in the Genesis era did this.
Right.
I think nowadays AI is really there for enemies. It's no longer really a selling point. Whereas, and what's that game? We talked about it recently that had, they said state of the art like enemy AI. Was it
Fear?
Condemned?
Yeah, it was Condemned Team, but it was, I think, also Condemned did. Remember where like they would either hide and cry in some corner, they'll attack you, they'll try to like gang up on you, like jump out of a corner and attack you by surprise. So it's kind of like the same idea behind this.
Yeah, so Jurassic Park is the Condemned of Sega Genesis games, but it's cool that they put that extra level of attention in there, because I can imagine like the most base, and going back to Acclaim, if Acclaim made a game like this, I think every single Velociraptor would run at you and bite you. Every single Triceratops would charge at you, no matter what. They do the same thing every time. And I think as you play through this game, and there's only a handful of dinosaurs, you're going to be like, all right, this one's going to run a charge at me. This one's going to bite me. And so it does bring some kind of level of excitement to be like, oh, this one's not being as aggressive as that other one, or oh, this one's really grumpy, you know?
Right.
9 members of the dev team, they were graphic artists and animators, and they took great care and attention to bring the ILM level of effects to the Genesis. Alan Grant was actually created by videotaping a member of the team in front of a blue screen and using their various movements as reference. Prince of Persia like went to the extreme and actually like had super detailed. It wasn't at that level, but they still kind of did their homework and put a lot more effort into Grant. He overall had 50 movements, which is quite a lot for a character when you consider like someone like Sonic, where it's like he runs, he rolls, he teeters on an edge, you know, spring, what's that, like 5, you know?
Right.
So someone like Alan Grant has a lot more happening than someone like Sonic the Hedgehog. The team also had full access to Stan Winston's animation studio and Oscar-winning stop-motion director Phil Tippett, who lent the team original models from the movie for reference. Ten Napel? Is that what it is? Ten Napel? Nipples?
Ten Naples.
Tenaple. He went so far as to create a wire armature for each dinosaur and animated them in stop motion, and then imported the individual frames, cleaned them up, and created pixel art from them. And then from there, artists used special smoothing and blending techniques to refine the dinosaur sprites. So it was really, I mean, it was different than how they did it with the movie, but it definitely was kind of a similar care and attention to detail with the sprites. Whereas, you know, not to call it out, but the SNES game, I very much doubt they did anything like that. I'm sure it was like, make the T-Rex walk.
Maybe we should have 10 Naples on the Sega Swinging Report show.
Yeah, just don't tell them your political or societal
or they
views.
Like anything, like that you like smoking, that you like drinking one beer, anything. So
boy, yeah, cool guy. But hey, he made good dinosaurs.
He's a good artist. I mean, that's about it. I mean, just because they're good artists doesn't mean they're
good people.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought this was really cool, and again, calling out playing at the next level. There is a lot more information in here. I'm just skimming the surface with the show notes, but the game's backgrounds were developed with an in-house tool called TED, which stands for Tile Editor. They took the T and then the ED, which uses a tiling technique that took an image and then breaks it down into smaller tiles, which is kind of a common practice for Sega Genesis, but in the TED, the in-house TED editor, what it can do is it can flip the tiles and rotate them, so the team can create much larger backgrounds from the same assets. And these compression techniques allowed them to have a lot less storage space on the cartridge and allowed for faster loading times. The game's background designers acted as the level designers, and they took great care and attention into the stage layout. Stages were initially sketched out on paper, and the whole team worked to make sure levels were balanced and offered fun and excitement at every path. So, for example, if they're like, oh, there's velociraptors down here, let's say they can climb up and go this way, but oh, there's going to be a T-Rex up there. So there was a lot of thought put into every single journey through the level having its own kind of adventure and its twists and surprises. The team would decide where the dinosaurs, the security guards, items were placed, and then once this was all fully designed, it was handed off to a programmer for final implementation. To save on time and money, though, much of the game's sound effects came from audio libraries. However, the dinosaur sounds and roars came from largely the Sega CD version, which was being developed alongside this game by a different team, and made for... Oh, and then also sounds made for the Jurassic Park film were used. The music, meanwhile, was from Sam Powell. Did the sound effects really stand out to you at all? Mm-hmm.
Some Sega Genesis games where you're like, oh god, that's grating. They're just kind of mid, you know. There's like, nothing to talk, write home about. Like Sonic the Hedgehog, iconic, right? There's some games that just leave an impression with these sound effects. This one doesn't really leave a impression. They're not bad. They're just not great either.
Right, exactly. And noting too that the sounds actually came from the team working on the Sega CD version. The Sega CD version was developed in-house by the Sega Multimedia Studio. And like I said, it's a very different game from this one, to the point where it should have its own Sega Talk episode. But if you go on to Sega Retro, you don't need to do it now, but the Sega Multimedia Studio is the entry where they show, I think it's Spencer Nielsen composing with Sonic in a recording studio. If you remember that one.
Oh, I think I posted it on the Twitter one time. Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. So they largely assisted with audio and video development. There's a whole interesting history there. Michael Jackson visited the studio at one point. But yeah, so going back to this game then, talking about the development with the Raptor actually became playable late in development. So when the team saw that the game was only 6 stages long, they decided to make the Raptor playable. And thankfully, early on in development, they scrapped a top-down driving mode, which meant they had more time to focus on the base game. But because they had more time, they actually finished the game ahead of time, which left more development time to implement the Raptor. And despite being a late addition, the Raptor mode became a standout element to the game and made it different from all other Jurassic Park games on competing platforms, because this was the only game where you could play as the Raptor. After 15 months of development, the game released, became a major hit, and between Sonic 3, Virgin's Aladdin, and Blue Sky's Jurassic Park, the holiday 1993 season was especially strong for Sega. Within 2 weeks of release, Sega had sold 2.2 million copies of the game and made $13.5 million. And I'm sure you remember, too, the Jurassic Park fold-out poster was probably the most common pack-in for all other... Like, I have maybe 40 Sega Genesis games. I swear a third of them have Jurassic Park posters.
I was going to say, like, I think the poster alone sold it to people, because I remember I had, like, 3 or 4 of them growing up, and I put one on the wall because you just had so many. It wasn't like you were going to be like, oh, no, I'm missing that Jurassic Park poster. Literally every game had it. So
right.
Yeah, big advertisement.
I did that too, but I also stupidly hung my Toe Jam and Earl poster and my Mickey Mania poster, which I only have one of. So I don't have them anymore. Stupid me.
And I bet you they're like too much on the internet for a piece of paper.
Well, that's funny. I bought, what was it, Alien Storm for the Genesis? One of those games. And inside it has a Sonic 1 poster, which actually sells for more on its own than the game that it was inside. So, yeah, posters are a big deal. I advise anyone that has like a big Genesis collection, just go through your collection someday and just see what posters you have, because you might forget that you have something cool in there. Eternal Champions was another popular one.
Oh yeah,
I remember. Yeah.
Definitely.
So what's your overall opinion on how Blue Sky approached Jurassic Park, and what lessons do you think other developers could learn from their approach to licensed games?
I think it pays to have attention to detail, making good-looking games. I think today you even see some games where you're like, oh, it's obviously trash, so it does bad. I mean, there's some really top-tier licensed games, like Harry Potter games didn't sell that well for a long time, and then that Hogwarts game came out and it did like a gajillion copies. So it shows you that if you put effort, and I think Jurassic Park was basically one of those games at the time that where they were putting some effort into it. Aladdin, Castle of Illusions, Quackshot, those type of games. I don't think this one's as high as it, but it obviously worked out enough. It was good enough to do 2.2 million, which back in the day is a lot, considering how many Genesis did they sell at this time? Probably like 30 million.
Right. Yeah, I think what really helped is that, like, if you're working on the project, then you really need to either have a love for the IP or find love for it. Like, Jurassic Park, it's easy to find a lot to love about it, and it's easy to, as a video game developer, like, get excited about certain elements and really put a lot of thought into it. But I get that there are games like, let's say, I don't know, The Rocketeer or The Addams Family, where it's kind of a weird property. It's cool, but it's like, how do I make a game out of this? But I think you need to find something. I don't know. I feel like some developers, they're doing a job and moving on, but what they need to remember is they're also creating a piece of video game history here that's going to live on well past them. I mean, we just talked about Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Right.
The lead developer of that passed away last year. We're still talking about that game, and it's not the greatest game, but we're still talking about it. But if you recall, we were really kind of impressed by the whip. We're like, the whip's really good.
Right.
And who knows, maybe that was their kind of defining aspect to it. They were like, you know what? It was a small team, but we really made a good whip. So
I think there's also this relationship that Sega had with third parties. I mean, with people with licenses, it's easier for them to be like, hey, Spielberg, give us the license. Look, we did Castle of Illusions. We did this other game, this other game. And if you just made a bunch of trash games, you'll just get trash licenses like the Addams Family.
And it helps. You hear stories of Sega inviting the likes of Spielberg and Michael Jackson to their studio back then and like showing them the latest technology. And I think that really came from the work of Al Nilsson and Tom Kalinske, because Al Nilsson especially really put a lot of focus on celebrity endorsements and celebrities being involved in the game creation. So you had like Joe Montana, and you had Michael Jackson. I think Joe Montana is who I'm thinking of. Being involved.
Joe Montana. Yeah, it was Joe Montana.
Right, being involved not only in the promotion, but like the development of it. And so I think you excite the development team when you bring in these big names, either from special effects or from filmmaking. And so, like I'm just thinking of a situation where Blue Sky would be making the Addams Family game. And it's like, well, what would they do? And they might go, okay, well, there is a fun history here of the house and how quirky they are and the different family members. So let's really exploit that. Let's have a game where you can explore the mansion, explore the different rooms. You get some of the character personalities. Like there's something there right there. But when you played the Activision or Acclaim versions, like it's just missing. It's just like, oh, make a top-down action game. Make it big head, little body. Don't put much thought into it. Move on. And it's kind of sad now that we don't get that many licensed games. Like there are games being made right now. Like there's a a really cool looking Star Wars game recently, that
Survivor?
open world one.
No.
Well, Survivor for sure, and then there's another one. I forgot what it's called, like Rogues or something.
Oh, the one where you're like just driving your ship.
Right, and then they just announced that the Indiana Jones video game's 50% completed, and you can kill Nazis in it. Like,
Oh, finally!
like you can actually kill them.
Not tranquilize
but-
them and like.
Let's tranquilize the Nazis. We don't want to kill them. They're not monsters.
They're just animals.
They're just animals. But you don't hear anything like Into the Spider-Verse having a game or The Flash having a game like on release tying in with the movie.
Oh yeah,
those days are long gone. And when we do get the game, it comes out like 8 years later. Like,
have you played the new Jedi games that they're making with that one character it's an actual actor? Cal, yeah. I think they're like.
I played the
I was
first one. I
shocked.
haven't played the second one.
Yeah, same here. I haven't played the second one yet, but I actually was shocked at how well they like. I'm like, oh, I want this guy to just show up in one of the shows randomly. Like that would
He
be.
might. You never know.
Yeah. So
People
I like
speculating he's one of the Inquisitors in Ahsoka. I don't think he is,
no.
but
I do like that aspect where they're like putting their own stamp into the movie universe or other multimedia franchises. I don't think it has to be a direct tie into a movie. It could be like Jedi Survivors. I think that's cool too.
Totally, and that's my point, is that we no longer see licensed adaptations of games. I think the last really big one was maybe Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Because now it's more expansions, it's like flashbacks, like Hogwarts Legacy is like 100 years in the past or whatever, and then Star Wars is its own thing. Like, we're not going to see Rogue One, the video game. We're not going to see Jurassic Park, the video game. But it is what it is. Things have changed. I think if you're going to see video games adapting movies, it's going to be on mobile phones. Unfortunately.
The closest maybe is Legos, but that's their own take on the adaptation. It's like a Lego-ized version retelling.
Yeah, it's kind of become the Funko Pop. It's like a different take on the characters.
And they also have Jurassic Park one.
They do. You're right. There's 2 commercials. Let's check them out. One's a teaser, and then one's a 30-second spot.
All right, I'll play.
So whenever you're ready, let me know.
Playing it. Mosquito. Pretty sure that's not how it works, but. Oh gosh. I've never seen this before, and it's like very like boom, boom. Like this is a big thing, and I guess it was. I mean, they gave out the poster how many times? 1 million times.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool teaser. I don't think they need a teaser for a tie-in game for a movie. Maybe they played this when the movie was on. I don't know. Like that would have been the perfect teaser, I think.
Would have
before
been.
you watch the movie.
But there's another commercial that's, I think, even better. Let's check it out.
Okay, 30 seconds. I will press play now. Welcome to the next level.
Imagine you wake up in Jurassic Park and you're a raptor. You have sharp teeth and 7-inch claws, and since you've been extinct for 65 million years, you'd be in a really bad mood.
Okay. Okay. They sold me as a kid. This is what they sold me already. Yeah, if they could have just made the game as a raptor, to be honest. Like, no humans. You hunt humans. You think
but
that
it's
would...
such a... Yeah, so there's a lot I like about this commercial. So first off, that paleontologist, he's real. That's the guy I talked about, Robert Baker, that they read his books, and then the Sega CD team actually worked with him and even put him in the Sega CD game as himself.
Wow.
I don't think he's there in person in the game. I think he's like a recording that plays when you visit different dinosaur pens. Like, it's almost like an in-universe educational video. But it's just really funny that he was up for this kind of like jokey commercial and he gets eaten at the end. I love the action shots of the game. I love the scene, the screen that says "You can be the Raptor" only on Genesis. Like that's enough
Right.
for kids.
The
Like,
marketing
this is the Raptor game.
the marketing team knew that like you play as a Raptor, say no more. I know how to advertise this game. I could sell it, right?
Exactly. And I mean, that's what brought us the Rampage edition, where they were like, that sold well, let's just do a sequel with more stages and more focus on the Raptor being playable. And it was smart. I mean, they made their money with this, and then they made their money again with the Rampage edition. I think their only downfall is that the Rampage edition sounds like a remaster
That's
when
what I
it's
was
really
thinking.
just like... It's not, though. It's like the equivalent of Vector Man 2 to Vector Man. Like, it's a different game. It looks similar, but it's new.
I think they made a mistake not just calling it like Jurassic Park 2, but then again, they probably would have been like, oh, they might think it's an adaptation of the second movie, Rampage. But to me, when you told me Rampage Edition, I thought, I guess putting edition in the end makes it sound like it's a extended version of the original.
Right, exactly. Right. So, whoops. But yeah, so what are your final thoughts on Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis?
Iconic movie, good licensed game by Sega, good animation in the game, as you could tell by the gameplay we played earlier if you're watching the video version. Sound effects just mid, not terrible. They've been a lot better. The soundtrack's just okay in my opinion. Not as iconic as the movie soundtrack, but definitely a great movie and a great tie-in video game for the Sega Genesis that should be in the classic collections. And I think limited run games agrees probably, but some licensing
Right.
thing is happening.
Exactly. My thoughts on it kind of echo yours. Fantastic movie, good game, but you know, I think it's more well known for. It's kind of hard to say. Like the gameplay is more iconic than the game, if that makes sense. Like no one talks about each stage lovingly. No one talks about like. That final confrontation. It's more just like the fun of playing as a raptor, and that's about that's about as much praise as it gets nowadays. But I think they really did go above and beyond with the graphics. I think it looks fantastic. It plays really well. It might be too difficult, but there are difficulty levels and a password system. So yeah, overall, I would say if you don't own this and you want to own it, I would pick it up. I think this, Aladdin, and Sonic 3 are a great kind of like trilogy of what was going on for Sega in '93. It's just kind of a great cross-section of the Genesis kind of at their peak, I would say. And yeah, I'm excited to revisit Jurassic Park sooner than later with the Rampage edition, and especially the Sega CD one, which I think is a really odd and kind of fun game, a point-and-click adventure. You know,
I will ask, have you read the book that ties into this?
I have, yeah.
Okay,
I just don't remember much of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe I should. I've been on a binge right now with audiobooks during work because I'm allowed to listen to anything.
Do it.
So I might give it a listen to.
Cool. And let's give a listen to our Patreon supporters' memories. So if you support us on Patreon, any level, we will read your memories at the end of the show. And of course, if you're the picker, we will read it at the beginning. So our memories come from Daniel Andres, who says, "Oh boy, you guys are doing this game, huh? I, for one, sort of love it, but I never can get past the first level. I love the iconic opening with the T-Rex saying, Sega. And I think I first discovered this game via watching the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Jurassic Park games. I do think that playing as the Raptor is a somewhat better experience, and I do think the art direction in this game is serviceable for the game's graphics and everything. Anyway, I personally prefer the Sega CD version of this game over the Genesis build. Also, last but not least, my wife and I are huge Jurassic Park nuts." Now I'm imagining him and his wife like dressing like Grant and Ellie
No.
for like couples Halloween
The
costumes.
T-Rex and the raptor. I mean, they're just getting, or the Triceratops maybe, or which one else?
Maybe. Are there? I mean, this is off topic. This isn't about what Daniel's done. Are there like dinosaur equivalent of furries?
I hope so.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
I'm go home, put on my claws, and bite you.
Bite people in the street.
Exactly. Brian Trong says, I love the dinosaur sound effects, the T-Rex that says Sega at the beginning, and the motion captures of Alan Grant and the dinosaurs. But man, the level design wasn't great. It was easy to fall off or through the levels and die. And as Alan Grant, the jumping felt so stiff and sluggish, beating the last level as Grant wasn't intuitive either. And then finally we have Michael S., who says, I've only played the SNES version, which was really fun. The top-down exploration outside that changed changed to first-person shooter inside the buildings was something I haven't seen before. It was also too hard for our friend group to beat. Well, you can revisit it again thanks to the Limited Run Games compilation, Michael. George, do you know what we are talking about next time?
Well, do I get to pick it next time, or is this something...
You don't.
Oh.
Nicholas picked it for you.
What is it? I forgot. I think you told me last time, but I totally forgot.
It is the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon with what I said was the weakest iteration of Robotnik. And I got raked over the coals on social media for saying this.
It's the Sonic cartoon, right? The Saturday morning one?
That's it.
Oh, well, we'll catch you guys next time on a beautifully animated Sega Talk. Bye.
Bye.